So, to keep you from going insane or to pull you back out of insanity in 2025, I thought it would be good as a little reminder to sit down with you and go over the questions that I ask myself periodically, and especially at this time of year when the year is closing. This is the Dog Sitter's House podcast. Hello, lovely dog sitters, and thank you for your patience as I was finishing up the last episode of 2024. And I thought it would be a little better to just kind of push it a day or two back to get it closer to the end of year, because what I have for you today is a very short and sweet episode that really is going to require you to do something different than normal, probably. So I apologize. I know that when you get on a podcast and start to listen, you're typically planning to listen because you're doing something else. So if that's the case, turn this one off, put another one on, or listen to this one, but make sure you come back to it when you can sit down with a pen and paper, because that is the only way that you're going to get the most benefit from everything I discuss today. And like I said, it's going to be quick. It's going to be a little workshop-y. So I'd love to have you kind of sit down with a pen and paper and take the time to answer these questions. Because, what I find in all aspects of life, and for many people in life, myself included, many, many times in my life, is we never slow down enough to really think about a variety of things, like how far we've come, what we've accomplished, what's working, what isn't working, and where we want to go. And when we're running a business, especially a dog sitting business, oftentimes we are in reactionary mode more than we care to be. And you know why, right? There's always a dog barking, there's always a dog doing something to capture your attention, and you're sometimes just, chasing your tail, the pun intended, right? But when you don't specifically, intentionally, mindfully take the time to sit down and work on your business, then you're just willy-nilly. You're flying in the wind like a leaf, and wherever it blows is where you go. And we don't want to do that in our business, right? Because usually what that means is you end up doing the same thing, but expecting different results. And we all know that is the definition of insanity. So, to keep you from going insane or to pull you back out of insanity in 2025, I thought it would be good as a little reminder to sit down with you and go over the questions that I ask myself periodically, and especially at this time of year when the year is closing, a new year is coming, and it's time to take a step back and look at what I'm doing, what I have done, and where I'm going, and intentionally create my new year, intentionally create my business from a place of vision and priorities versus reaction. If you don't do this, it's kind of like having a dog that you don't ever take care of. You don't feed it, you don't bathe it, you don't brush it. And next thing you know, it's all, sickly and skinny and matted and fleas and you name it, right? Your business is the same way. If you do not work on your business, take care of your business, and you just keep on running around in reactionary mode or just keep doing the same things you've always done, then you're not going to get any different results. So let's jump right into it, shall we? Okay, so one of the questions I always like to ask myself, because as life changes, as we grow, as we age, as we build the business, our values change. So you always want to check in with yourself and see, what are my top 3 values? Now, I recommend doing this question in the from the perspective of for your personal values and from the perspective of your business values. So start with, what are my top 3 values? This is question number 1, by the way. I have I don't even know how many. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 questions for you today. So what are my top 3 personal values is question number 1. Why does this matter? Some of you may know, some of you may get this already, but for those of you that don't, this is so very important. This is the foundation of every single thing. It's probably comes down to whatever your top 3 values are, probably, I hope at least, aligns with your business in the sense that, like say, for example, you value freedom, right? Maybe you value freedom to kind of create your own schedule so that you can be there to take your children to school and back, or to take care of an elderly parent, or to work out regularly, or all the above, right? And, it's when you identify what these top 3 values are that you can start to shift or build your business, making sure that you keep these a priority and you build it, structure it in a way that supports and allows you to keep these top 3 personal values as a priority. Okay, so for me, for example, let's see. My top 3 values. My top value is contribution, and that means when I sit here and do these podcasts, when I coach somebody, even when I just hop on, a Facebook group and answer somebody's question or cry for help about dog sitting in their business or something, like all of that stuff lights me up, lifts me up, sets me on fire from the inside out. And I know that I am contributing in this world. I am using the gifts that I was born with, and that lights me up. So it's very important to me to structure my dog sitting business in a way that allows me time to be able to provide this for people, to be able to guide and assist people and remind them of all the tools and information and power within them to also create and design their business around their values. So next is question number 2. What are your top 3 business values? Again, so on this front, you really want to focus on, like, what are the values of the business? What are the top 3 values? Is it to always have fun? And are you doing that? Are you doing that on a regular basis? Are you infusing that in your business on a daily, weekly basis? And if not, okay, great. Let's identify that and see how we can work that in better. These are all just things to make sure you put it top of mind so that you can start finding ways to weave it into your business if it's not currently being prioritized. That is the reason for questions number 1 and 2. So really take your time to sit down on what's most important to you. All right, so number 3 is, what helped fulfill or prioritize these top 3 personal and business values for you in 2024? Basically, what worked, right? What worked? Did anything work? And if it worked, let's identify that. Let's make sure that's something we don't get rid of. Let's make sure that's something we build upon if possible. Just identify that. Not only to identify that and make sure you keep doing it, but to give yourself kudos, because, oftentimes in life, we get so hung up on having a goal. Goals are amazing. Goals are great to have. But we're human. And so we reach that goal. And then next thing you know, before we even celebrate or recognize it, we're looking towards the next goal, right? We're looking forward. We're not being present. We're not giving ourselves the credit that we deserve. And, sometimes it's really important to sit back and think like, wow, I made this work. I made this happen. I had this major problem earlier in the year and I worked it out, and hey, pat myself on the back. I'm pretty proud of that, because it's very uncommon for us to pat ourselves on the back, whereas it's more likely that we're just recognize all the things that we did wrong. And we don't want to do that, right? We don't want to beat ourselves up. So question number 4 is, what deterred me from my top 3 values, both personal and business? Okay, this again is not to beat yourself up. Please do not beat yourself up. Just identify. This is just to make yourself aware, because awareness is the very first step to creating positive change. All right. So become aware of what deterred you, what did not work, what did not work in your business, what took you away from the things that are most important to you. And if you start to go down the rabbit hole of beating yourself up or shaming yourself for it, stop yourself and say out loud, I forgive you. I forgive you. I forgive myself. And I know that sounds corny and it feels corny when you do it. I'm not going to lie. But there's a shift that happens when you use your physical, like, be standing up, say it proudly, say it strongly, use your hands, use motion. And when you use your whole entire physicality as well as the emotion, and you really mean it behind it, and you say, I forgive myself, it's like fairy dust is sprinkled upon you from the heaven angels above, and they're like, whoa, we now relieve you of all guilt and shame around this. It's so amazing. I remember when I first learned this, I was actually working. This was back when I was, doing my self-growth and healing and mindfulness and all this jazz, because I had all sorts of, stress, and it was mostly brought upon by my own thinking. And I was in the corporate world still. And I always prided myself on customer service. I'm really good. I've always been a natural. One of my strengths is in customer service. And, in my job, it was actually a sales job, but I called it a glorified customer service job, because these people pretty much had no choice but to buy from me or like one or two other of our competitors. So yeah, they could have chose someone else, but there wasn't a whole lot of choices. If they were out of stock, guess who got it? We did, right? So I always called it a glorified sales job. And so I always prided myself on making sure I always got back to a customer, a voicemail, text, an email within 24 hours. And more often than not, I got back to them that very day, usually within a couple of hours tops, right? But at the very, very worst case scenario, unless I was on vacation and had an out of office, message, then I made sure I never ever took more than 24 hours to get back to somebody. That was just my personal rule for myself. And one day I realized that I forgot to get back to somebody, and it had been like a day and a half. And I immediately went into this spiral of, oh my God, how could you do that? Why did you do that? Oh my God, why didn't I do that? What was wrong with me? Like, oh my God, am I slipping? Maybe I'm not as good as I used to be. Does this mean I don't care? I mean, I was just beating myself up for it immediately. And then I remember I was walking across the room. I was working from home. So I was walking across my living room from my desk over to my kitchen, probably to eat, because I got stressed out. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I ate emotionally. And so I was walking into the kitchen, and halfway in between the living room and the kitchen, or right between them, I thought, oh yeah, I'm supposed to forgive myself for, mistakes, for making mistakes. I have to remember that I'm human, that this wasn't a premeditated mistake. I didn't mean to not get back to this customer. It was one time, and I've been here for like 8 years, and it's the first time I've ever done it. And so I literally just said out loud, I forgive myself. And I kid you not, it really truly was like magic fairy dust, because the energy from the negativity, the shame, the guilt, the freaking out, the stressing about it just disappeared immediately. And these are little things that I feel like if they would have taught us this from, being a little kid, we'd be so much further in life, right? Because we wouldn't beat ourselves up half of our lives. But and what did I do? I immediately called the customer and profusely apologized and let them know that that was not like me, that was, that was a rule. I broke my personal rule, and I was, really upset that I did that, and I apologized. And they totally understood. And they were like, "It happens, April." They were like, "Get over it." Luckily, I'd already proven myself to this customer as well. So that made it a little easier. But that's my little story on forgiving yourself. It really works if you say it out loud with conviction, with motion, and you believe it when you say it. So, again, back to question number 4 that sparked all of this. What deterred me from my top 3 values, both personal and business values, in 2024? All right. And then don't go down the rabbit hole of beating yourself up. If you do, say, I forgive you. Now, once you identify this, it leads to the next question. Number 5 is, what have I learned from those things that deterred me? What did I learn from those things that didn't work, that kept me from my top 3 personal and business values? Because that's really where we need to go in our mind, because we have to remember that every single mistake that we make in life, every single time we fall down, is just an opportunity to lift us back up higher than we ever were. So, what have you learned from the things that didn't work? Write it down. Think about it. Write down as many as you can, like different things that didn't work and different things that you could have learned from the stuff that didn't work. It's not always just one lesson from each thing that didn't work, right? And then you can also at that point see that you're training your brain to get in the habit of seeing mistakes as lessons instead of meaning something about you, right? And what I always tell the people, the team in my dog sitting business, those who help here around here, I have always said to them from day one, listen, around here, there are no mistakes unless you don't learn from them. That is the only time it's a mistake. If you're actively trying to learn from them, then it's not a mistake. It's a lesson. So don't beat yourself up. Okay? All right. So let's see, where are we? Question number 6, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 6. Question 6. What did you learn from those that helped? Right. So back to the a question of like what worked, what did you do right, what worked out, what helped you fulfill and prioritize your values, what worked and made things better or just fixed issues and problems in your business, what did you do differently that worked better, things like that. What did you learn from those? That one's actually a little trickier. It's a little harder to squeeze out a lesson from them. But here's where I would suggest, a lot of times you can go inward on that. Like for me, I cut back on how many dogs I was going to take just because as I said, I wanted to leave more time to allow me to fulfill my top value of contribution. Now, of course, I get contribution within my dog business as well, but it was consuming me because I was really not leaving myself any personal time, any recharge time, and when I did get it, it was recharge because I didn't have anything left in me, and so I had to leave a little extra time for more than just, a few hours here and there to recharge. So I cut back. And then this meant that I had to let go. I had to let go of so much income on a monthly basis. I really had to let go from that. What did I learn from, and you know what? This worked, right? This really worked. This really helped me find an amazing work-life balance. And it's been the best decision I ever made, for real. And what I learned from that is that letting go usually brings you something good in return, right? That letting go isn't as scary as it's all cracked up to be. Okay. So just an example of, like, maybe you didn't learn something tangible, but what did you learn from these things that is something on the inside about you? All right. So question number 7, what will I let go? Well, I forgot I even had a let go question. So funny enough, what will I let go of in 2025 that is holding me and or my business back and keeping me safe? Right? Because the reason I say and keeping me safe is because that usually helps you kind of figure out, like, where you're staying in your comfort zone. We all end up, having this little box that we reside in and operate in, and usually we don't like to deter from that box. And honestly, it's very biological and psychological because our brain is just set up that way for survival reasons. I won't go into the whole biology of it, but you have to consciously recognize that and push yourself out of the box and not let your biology win, because as long as you're not being chased by a tiger, or thinking about jumping off a bridge or something that's obviously very dangerous for you, then it's actually more dangerous to stay in the box, because, as the saying goes, as those who do not grow perish, and as the good book says, right? So you need to grow. You need to grow your business. You need to grow yourself, because if you don't, eventually that comfortable, cozy little box is going to turn cold and empty, and daggers are going to be pushing out of it from the inside, and you're going to be stuck. How do you like that for imagery? I don't know where that came from, but you know what I mean? Like, you don't want to get so comfortable in the same old and in your comfort zone that you don't let go of things, or let go of fear even, and push yourself out of that box. So what are some things that are not really supporting you and where you want to go with your business or your life that are holding you back that you can let go of? That's usually there's a good amount of items on that list for most people. Okay, if you're human, there's always things that we need to be letting go of that we're not. Even if you've already let go of 12 things in your life, there's something else always comes up. Trust me. that's an infinite question to be asking yourself, and to be doing, a practice to be doing. Okay. Let's see. What are we on? 8. Number 8. What will you add or do differently in your business in 2025? What will you do differently? Are you going to try something different? Are you going to add something to your business? What are you going to do differently? What can you do? Let's think. Let's brainstorm. Let's get creative. Let's think of ways that you can streamline your business more, that you can increase the value, that you can continue to grow your business, that you can show your customers your appreciation, that you can have more fun with the dogs and your team if you have one. Just so many different things you can look at there. That's a fun one. I think that's a fun one because you get to operate from a place of creation. And, the truth is we're all creators, right? We're all born as creators. So put on that little creator hat and have fun. Okay, last question. Drum roll, please. Question number 9 is a good one. This is inspired by my mentor, my coach, and it is, what is a question you can ask yourself every single day that will keep you focused on your growth and values in 2025, on your intention, on your vision? What is a question you can ask yourself every single day that will keep you focused on your growth, your vision, and your values in 2025? And when you come up with that question, put it in your calendar as a daily reminder, put it on your screenshot, put it on your refrigerator, put it on your mirror, put it somewhere to remind you to ask this question regularly. Now, some people have a hard time, like this is so foreign to them. They're like, what do you mean by that? So I'll give you an example. A question for me this year that is going to help guide me and to help keep me from getting into my head is, how can I better serve today? How can I better serve those who are, dog sitters today? How can I better serve more dog sitters today? Right? Something like that. Right? That's a question that's going to keep reminding me that I can make mistakes and I can try new things. And all I have to do is focus on serving. All I have to do is focus on serving you. This is not about me. This is not about my ego. This is not about getting filthy rich. This is about serving. And this is about using the gifts that I was given to serve. So if I just stay focused on that, that helps me stay on track every single day. So what is a question that you can ask yourself that will keep you focused, inspired, mindful, and on your vision, your growth path, your values in 2025? And like I said, post it somewhere, put it somewhere where you'll see it every single day. Because when you start asking this question to the point where it becomes a habit, you're going to automatically operate from that system, from that belief system, from that train of thought, right? You won't have to ask yourself that question anymore because you'll just automatically operate that way. And that's the beauty of it all. So hopefully this gives you some planning, some retrospecting, some insight on how to look at 2025 and create your best year yet in your business and in your personal life. And with that said, thank you for listening. I appreciate you guys, and I hope everyone's having a wonderful holiday and has an amazing new year. Until next time, happy tails to you.